Rewind the clock to July 24, 1974. The Supreme Court looked entirely different, but the crisis facing America was nearly identical. Richard Nixon was in the White House, backed into a corner by investigations, clinging to a single desperate legal theory that the president holds absolute authority, placing him above the reach of the law. Nixon believed his executive privilege was a fortress. If he deemed a tape private, it stayed private. If he declared a document secret, it remained secret. He was confident in this gamble for one strategic reason. He had appointed 4 of the sitting justices. He viewed the court through a transactional lens. I gave you the robe, you owe me the ruling. But he was wrong. In United States versus Nixon, that court didn't fracture 5-4. It didn't offer a split decision. It delivered a unanimous 8-0 verdict against the man who appointed them. They declared that a president is not a king. Nixon was forced to hand over the tapes, and 16 days later, his presidency was over. We look back on that day as the moment the judiciary chose the survival of the Constitution over the protection of a man. Fast forward to today. For 3 years, Donald Trump has wagered his freedom and his future on the belief that 1974 was an exception, not the rule. He bet that the house that Trump built, the Supreme Court with its 6-3 conservative supermajority, would play the game differently. He believed the transaction would finally pay off. He gave them power. He expected immunity in return. He was mistaken. Today, without a televised spectacle or oral arguments, the Supreme Court delivered a knockout blow to Donald Trump's primary legal defense. The order was brief, unsigned, and catastrophic for the former president. The High Court refused to intervene. They denied the stay. They rejected the stall tactics. In plain English, they told the lower courts and special counsel Jack Smith, proceed. The fantasy of absolute immunity is dead. The delay is over. To grasp the magnitude of this, look at what Trump's legal team was actually attempting. They weren't fighting on the facts. They weren't claiming he didn't take the classified files or didn't attempt to subvert the election. Their entire strategy was procedural. It was a calendar game. Their argument was that the issue was so complex it required months of deliberation, aimed solely at pushing the trial past November 5th, 2024. The plan was simple: win the election and order the DOJ to kill the case. Today, the Supreme Court torched that calendar. By refusing the appeal, jurisdiction snaps back to the trial judge immediately. Subpoenas fly. Jury selection starts. Perhaps the most terrifying detail for the team at Mar-a-Lago is the silence. There was no furious dissent from Justice Clarence Thomas, no sorrowful defense of the executive branch from Justice Alito, and critically, no lifeline from Trump's own appointees, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Barrett. The silence from the conservative wing is deafening. It signals that Trump's arguments have drifted so far from constitutional reality that even the justices he appointed to dismantle the administrative state drew a line in the sand. They realized exactly what the Nixon court realized 50 years ago. If you rule that a president is above the law, you render the Supreme Court meaningless. Faced with a choice between saving Trump or preserving their own authority, the justices chose themselves. His is a disaster for the defense. I've spoken with legal experts and former prosecutors regarding espionage and RICO cases, and the consensus is unanimous. Without the shield of immunity, Trump has no defense on the merits. Will he argue he didn't hide documents? We have the security tapes. Will he argue he didn't pressure officials? We have the Georgia recordings. Will he argue he didn't incite the crowd? We watched it live. His only viable defense was, "You are not allowed to prosecute me." That defense has just been evaporated. The timing is brutal. Just as the general election pivots into high gear, Trump intended to hold rallies and attack the economy. Instead, he faces the prospect of spending the next 6 months anchored to a defendant's chair in a frigid D.C. courtroom. He will be forced to listen to his former chief of staff, his White House counsel, and his vice president testify against him. The campaign cannot control the split-screen visual. Trump the candidate on one side, Trump the convict on the other. There is a deeper psychological wound here for Trump. He has operated his entire life on the principle that everyone has a price and loyalty is transactional. He viewed the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh as purchasing insurance policies. Today proves he fundamentally misunderstood the institution. These justices have lifetime tenure. They never need to run for office. They never need another favor from him. Today, they cut the cord. Trump's reaction on social media, screaming about corruption, reveals his panic. Yet notice he struggles to attack the justices by name. They are his legacy. If he calls them corrupt, he admits his own appointments were failures. He is trapped in a logic loop of his own creation. So, what is the fallout? The timeline accelerates. Judge Chutkan has signaled she wants a speedy trial. With the Supreme Court removing the red light, she will slam on the gas. A verdict before Election Day is now a very real possibility. The witnesses flip. For the aides and co-conspirators hoping Trump would delay the trial and eventually pardon them, the message is clear. He cannot save you. If he has no immunity, neither do you. The race to cut a deal with Jack Smith just became a sprint. The election transformation. We are entering uncharted waters. A major party candidate on trial during a campaign. Trump's superpower is dominating the news cycle. But now, that cycle will be dominated by court transcripts and evidence, not his rallies. Consider the alternative. Had the court granted the stay, they would have given him amnesty through delay. By denying him, they did the bare minimum, but in this political climate, the bare minimum is heroic. They simply applied the standard rule of law. The president is a citizen. This ruling also sends a warning shot to other judges, specifically Judge Cannon in Florida. The Supreme Court has signaled they have no patience for frivolous delays. It stiffens the spine of the entire federal judiciary. Donald Trump is a man who despises losing control. For 3 years, he dictated the pace. Today, he lost the wheel. Jack Smith is driving now, and he doesn't break for politics. Trump banked on the wheels of justice turning slowly, forgetting they also grind exceedingly fine. History may well look back on this unsigned order as the moment the fever broke, the moment the system held the line. The strategy of delay is dead. The trial of the century is on. And for the man who thought he owned the court, the reality is just setting in. Watch this space. Everything moves faster from here.